guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is an entitled people story. I am a farmer living in a rural area, surrounded by wide open spaces and peaceful nature. Our family farm has been in operation for over 4 generations, and we have always enjoyed the tranquility of our surroundings. However, things changed when a developer bought the farm next to ours and built mini mansions that are now part of an HOA. As a result, I started receiving letters every week from the HOA, complaining about my tractor sitting in the field at the front of my property, where it can be seen from the street. This is a necessary part of our daily work, as we rely on this machine to maintain and cultivate our crops. Additionally, they have also complained about our barns, outbuildings, and the sound of the large tractor when we're seeding. One day, my grandfather saw some people he didn't recognize checking out the barn. He went out with his double-barrel 12-gauge to see what they were up to. It turns out they were HOA inspectors, who declared their right to inspect the building to make sure it met HOA rules. My grandfather, who is not politically correct, showed a lot of restraint in not using OO buckshot to register his opinion of the trespassers. I was proud of him, and yes, our property is fenced and posted. To make matters worse, I was informed by the HOA that they were going to fine me $1,000 a day until the offending structures and machinery were removed. I informed them that I and my property are not part of the HOA, and if their inspectors set foot on my property again, I would have them arrested or let my grandfather loose with his double barrel. The HOA was outraged and called the county sheriff's office to complain. However, I know the sheriff personally, as my family has lived here for generations. He came out and asked me what was going on. I told him everything, and he also visited the HOA to hear their demands that he takes immediate action to protect their inspectors. To their surprise, the sheriff informed them that since my property is posted and fenced, I was well within my rights to not allow them on my land. Furthermore, because of our livestock, a 12-gauge is not unreasonable for self-defense against predators. He also informed them that as I am not a member of the HOA, I have no requirement to allow them on my land, and if he gets another call, he will arrest the inspectors for criminal trespass. However, the HOA didn't back down. They sent me a letter from their lawyer, ordering me to cease and desist all operations until they get a court date. They claimed that they were suing me for damaging the value of their property. I forwarded it to my lawyer, who was amazed by their audacity. First, a court has to issue a cease and desist order. Second, we have been here farming for generations, and our property is not for sale. I spoke with the HOA board and told them to leave us alone, or we'll be more than happy to play our lawyer as better than their lawyer. They were shocked when I informed them that we are currently training the 5th generation to take over and that we have no intention of selling our farm, period. It turns out the developer had left them with the impression that I was going to sell my property for development, like my neighbors had done, only to make his money and run. Despite all this, the HOA continued to harass us, sending us letters and making complaints about every little thing. However, we continued to stand our ground, and eventually, they gave up. But just when we thought it was over, the developer reappeared with a new plan. The developer came back with a new proposal, claiming that he had found a buyer for our farm who was willing to pay a hefty sum. He promised that this new buyer would be a better fit for our community and that we would benefit greatly from selling our land. However, we were skeptical, as we had heard similar promises before. We did our own research and discovered that this so-called buyer was actually a shell company set up by the developer himself. He had been using the HOA as a tool to pressure us into selling our land to him, so that he could then flip it to this fake buyer for a huge profit. We were outraged at this deceitful behavior and decided to take legal action against the developer. We hired the best lawyers we could find and filed a lawsuit against him for fraud and misrepresentation. The case dragged on for months, with both sides presenting their evidence and making their arguments. However, in the end, justice was served. The court ruled in our favor, finding the developer guilty of fraud and ordering him to pay us a hefty sum in damages. It was a great victory for us, but it also served as a warning to other developers who might try to use similar tactics to take advantage of rural landowners. We were grateful for the support of our community and for the hard work of our lawyers, who had fought tirelessly on our behalf. In the end, we were able to continue farming on our land, preserving our family's legacy for generations to come. We had shown that we would not be intimidated by overzealous HOAs or deceitful developers, and that we would always stand up for what was right. The next story is titled My Time in a Call Center. I'd worked for this company that sold overpriced tat online to people who, if they did a simple Google search, could find said that easier. I did not mind the job and was that guy who turned up early, logged on, and to be fair, it was an easy job, and the time flew by. Well, after a few years, we had a management change, and this new manager in charge of the center was an ass, dim and angry. He got the nickname Seagull as he'd fly and squawk loudly, find someone to crap on, then vanish into his office to do very little. Well, one day I was going to be late in, called the number to let them know the train I was getting was not there and had to await another and no answer. So, I get in and Seagull decides to make a big issue concerning my late arrival. He's got forms out and advises he's going to be making this a disciplinary issue. Fair enough, I said, then pointed out that for it to be a disciplinary issue he needs to be informing our and needs another manager in to witness all this. I then gave Seagull the number for our and advised that I'd be starting work and would happily make up the time re my being late. Well, he says no, that these need sorting out, and flaps off to find another manger. Well, eventually an hour or so later he arrives with the our manager and starts moaning about staff being continually late. I point out that this my first instance and I tried to contact him and have the call logs on my phone. Well, he's determined to push this, so I point out I'm not signing a disciplinary form over events beyond my control. Our manager agrees with me, and I can see Seagull is not happy. So, I decide if he wants to play by the rules I'll give him another headache. Having wasted the best part of the day, it's agreed that nothing is going to be happening. I however decide from then on to work my fixed rota. Getting in early each day and sitting at my spot watching the call board flashing with lots of incoming calls and doing nothing until a few seconds before the appointed start time. Seagull hated that but couldn't say anything, and I found out that our got him sacked for abusing his power later. I heard he upset a few staff and they quit, and the company had to pay out compo. The next story is entitled Mother Lost Control of Her Bicycle and Hit a Baby Carriage. I'll let you know right away that no one got hurt in this incident. This happened a few years ago. I was out walking on a nice and sunny day and coincidentally ran into a friend I hadn't seen in a while. Let's call her Beth. Beth is past childbirth age, so I was surprised to see her with a baby carriage. Turns out she just became a grandmother. After congratulating her, we decided to stroll on together and catch up. At some point we ended up just standing around on the sidewalk. This was on the corner of a quiet low-traffic T-crossing with a nice view of the harbor. We're chatting away, enjoying our company and conversation, when suddenly a wild Karen appears. Yes, literally. This woman was out cycling with her 7 to 9-year-old son, when she lost control of her bicycle and somehow, in a rather large T-crossing, managed to steer right into the baby carriage. Like I said, no one got hurt as she fortunately managed to mostly brake in the last second, so it wasn't like the baby carriage was run over. More like an unfriendly push. Now, I should mention that Beth is a very calm, easygoing, reasonable and kind person. Don't get me wrong, she is by no means a pushover. But she's not quick to argue or get angry, and will usually give you the benefit of the doubt. We, of course, were startled and Beth asked what on earth this woman was doing, not in an angry way, or loud voice or anything. Well, this Karen went full on defensive, and basically blamed Beth for having the audacity to just stand there on the sidewalk and putting the baby in danger. To her credit, she did apologize weakly, though it was followed by the infamous, "But I was just standing there looking confused and choose not to interfere as Beth is far better at this than I am, and she was perfectly capable of handling this crazy woman herself." As I said, this happened years ago, and it was not in English, so this transcript is by no means verbatim, and it will mostly be a summary, because this woman kept repeating herself, but the following conversation happened. Beth. What on earth are you doing? Karen. I am very sorry I hit you, but you should not be standing there with your baby carriage. Beth. Confused face. Why shouldn't I stand here? Karen. Because you were putting your baby in danger. Beth. We're on the sidewalk. You should have been in the bike lane. Points to the bike lane which is right next to the sidewalk. Karen. I lost control of my bicycle, I admit this, but you still shouldn't be standing around here with that baby carriage. You put your baby in danger. Beth. But you're the one who hit us. We didn't do anything wrong. Karen. Yes, you did. Why would you stand there with a baby carriage? This is irresponsible. Etc. The conversation basically goes on like this for a while. Beth, of course, isn't going to back down from this crap. Karen keeps insisting Beth is to blame for being in the way, and that it's Beth's fault the baby carriage was hit. Meanwhile, a few meters away, her poor kid, Karen's kid, that is cringing, just standing quietly with his little bicycle looking sad and embarrassed. While Karen has been ignoring her own kid this whole time, Beth, being the kind and empathetic person she is, feels sorry for the kid, we both did, and tries repeatedly to get Karen to mind her kid. Eventually she calmly proceeds to tell Karen, speaking very slowly, I think you should go get your son and leave. This, unsurprisingly, did not work at all. Anyway, she eventually left, but still kept turning around to continue arguing for a few minutes, which felt like forever. We were speechless for a moment, and then picked up our conversation where we left off and kept on strolling. The former is a lie. We straight away began to talk crap about Karen. The next story is titled Demon Mother Think Her and Her Son Are Above the Rules and Ends Up Ruining Other Kids' Fun. So, I work in a store which sells bath bombs along with a lot of other things. We often demonstrate the bath bombs in our sinks, especially for kids, and they always love it. The rule is that it's one bath bomb demo per group of customers. We only have 2 sinks, and on this particular day we'd just done a demonstration in one of them. There were a bunch of little kids crowded around and watching it fizz and change colors, light and dark pink. A little boy of about 6/7 and his mum enter the store. Immediately this kid rushes over to look at the bath bomb and announces very loudly that he hates pink and that the bath bomb is bad. I try to be nice and pull out our little basket with wasted off bath bombs. Usually we use chipped or damaged ones that we couldn't sell anyway. I tell him to choose a color that he'd like better, but then the mum criticizes me for trying to sell her son damaged goods. I explain that this is just for a demo and a chip out of the bath bomb isn't going to affect the way it looks in the water, but the mum isn't having any of it. It's not worth fighting over. We have a budget for it in case people want to see a specific bath bomb that hasn't been wasted off, so I tell him to choose a pristine one from the shelf. I also tell him to pick carefully because he only gets one. He chooses a bath bomb which smells nice but just turns a soft white in the water, so I suggest that maybe he choose a more colorful and fun one and explain that this one isn't very impressive. He glares at me and shrieks, "No!" very loudly. I kind of flustered. The other kids near the sink were all staring and a lot of the adults in the store had turned around. So I just let him put it in the free sink without trying to persuade him out of it. As expected, the water just goes white and the kid is not happy. He starts yelling that it's boring and his mother demands he be allowed to put another one in. I explain that we only have 2 sinks and now they're both full. Also I tell her that each kid is only allowed one so that the most people possibly get a chance to see them. She ignores me and tells her son to go get another one off the shelf. I tell her again that I'm sorry, but he won't be allowed to put another one in. She tells me that I'm being stingy, and at this point the boy is running up and down the rows of bath bombs trying to choose one. One of my supervisors comes over and repeats exactly what I've told her, and the mum says that it's my fault for not telling her son that the white one wouldn't be suitable, despite me telling him exactly that a minute earlier. At this point the kid comes running back with a blue bath bomb and my supervisor tells him sternly that he can't put it in the sink. The now clearly demonic mother accuses my supervisor of taking a tone with my son, and demands that she sees the manager. Normally we have pretty reasonable people in our store and a request, and behavior like this is very rare, so my supervisor just awkwardly walks away to get our manager from the office. The mum gives me the most poisonous look I've ever gotten from a customer, turns to her son and tells him to put it in the sink. I instantly tell him that he's not allowed, but this kid just eats the bath bomb into the already used sink before I can stop him. Bath bombs are meant to be placed in the bath gently, so when he hurls it water goes absolutely everywhere, including over the other children standing at the sink next to it. Understandably they all start screaming for their parents, and so I begin grabbing paper towel to help them get the water off their faces and clothes. I'm furious with the mother, but I can't pay attention to her as I, along with their shocked parents, are trying to console the other kids, and as we're drying them off I hear the absolute demon lady say, "Oh well, that's not very impressive either, is it? I've never wanted to physically fight a customer before, but wow, I got close then." The entire debacle ended up with my manager getting into an argument with the mother over making her pay for the second bath bomb. My manager eventually won by telling her that if she didn't pay, the shopping center security would have to be called. The parents of the kids who were splashed were very understanding and non-demonic. Sorry for the long read. Maybe this doesn't seem too hellish compared to other stories on this page, like no one was screaming at each other at any point. But it was just such a bizarre and arrogant encounter, I had to get it off my chest. The next story is titled "I Might Have Literally Saved Her Ass." So, as I pulled up on me to work last night, I see the girl who works the swing shift being led to our second building by a very creepy looking dude. She is young and petite, and he has the look of a spider who has just caught himself a nice juicy fly. Her eyes are wide with fear and she's trying to make excuses, but he's insistent that he can't get into his room and needs her to help him. Reading the situation, even though I'm still in my motorcycle gear and so not yet technically in uniform, I tell her that I'll escort him down. He still insists that she do it. He couldn't give a good reason why. I say fine, but I'm right behind them. At one point, he actually put his hand on her lower back, and I politely but firmly ask him not to touch our employees. He takes his hand off of her, but is obviously not happy about my presence. We finally get to his door, and he makes a half-assed attempt to use his keycard as if to prove he wasn't lying about not being able to get in. I can tell he's about to ask her to do it for him, so I step in with an "Allow me, sir," as I take the card from him and unlock the door first try. He gives me a half-hearted "Thanks buddy," and goes into his room, slamming the door behind him. She thanked me and told me he'd been creeping her out before all this. Maybe I'm reading too much into the situation, but I shudder to think what might have happened if I'd shown up just a couple of minutes later. I considered calling the cops, but figured they couldn't really do anything because it's not illegal to be a creep. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.